In the year 1996, within a nameless corner of southwestern Egypt, a geologist stumbled upon a stone. This in itself was unremarkable. The great sand sea is an infinite ledger of rock and silence. But this piece was an anomaly. It was the color of charcoal, porous and unnaturally light in the hand. It resembled no known terrestrial formation. When it was cut open, it unearthly diamonds. Scientists would name it Hypatia, and the more they studied it, the deeper the enigma became. Chemical analysis revealed an impossibility. The stone contained almost no silicates, the fundamental building blocks of every planet in our solar system. Instead, it was rich in carbon and bizarre compounds never before encountered in nature. Its ratio of isotopes was so alien, it matched no known meteorite, no comet ever recorded. The Hypatia Stone did not belong to our home. Its very composition whispered of an origin in a cold, giant interstellar nebula long before our own sun had ignited. It was a guest from the void between the stars, a relic from a time that preceded our world. And this ancient traveler chose for its final resting place one of the most inhospitable locations on Earth, the Sahara, a place we consider a synonym for emptiness, for oblivion. But what if that perception is wrong? What if the Sahara is not a void, but an archive? A vault where, sealed beneath layers of sand and time, lie not only fragments of distant stars, but entire worlds that once thrived here on Earth. The existence of the Hypatia Stone forces a profound question. If the desert can hide something older than the solar system itself, what else does it conceal? What histories, what civilizations has it buried? This is not an investigation of a wasteland, it is the autopsy of a lost continent. A journey into a time machine where every grain of sand is a page from a book of worlds that came before us. To begin this journey, we need a landmark, a map. And nature has left us the most incredible map imaginable. Viewed from space across the uniform yellow-brown landscape of Mauritania, something. It is a gigantic, perfectly cozying up from the planet's depths. Its diameter is 40 kilometers. It is so vast that the astronauts of the Gemini missions in the 1960s used it as a navigational beacon. It is a feature on a map of forgotten time, an invitation to look deeper. For in a world that guards its secrets so jealously, sometimes the grandest mysteries are hidden in plain sight, waiting only for us to learn how to see. From space, it is an unmistakable feature, a vast concentric bullseye carved into the desert floor of Mauritania, the Rishat structure, more poetically known as the Eye of the Sahara. For decades, the simplest explanation seemed the most plausible. The perfect circular shape, the nested rings, all the hallmarks of a cataclysm from the heavens. It would have been a clean, understandable story, a cosmic impact that left a permanent scar on the face of the planet. But when geologists finally set foot within its rings, the story began to unravel. They searched for the telltale signs of a violent collision. The shocked quartz, the fused glass, the unique minerals forged only in the crucible of unimaginable pressure and heat. They found nothing. The crater theory collapsed into dust. The truth, it turned out, was infinitely more complex and far more profound. The Eye of the Sahara is not a wound inflicted from without, but a story revealed from within. It is a geological dome pushed upward from the planet's mantle over hundreds of millions of years, then planed down by the patient at Leia. Its genesis began more than 100 million years ago as the supercontinent Pangaea was torn asunder. As Africa and South America drifted apart, the crust stretched thin. Deep beneath the future desert, a vast plume of molten rock began to rise. It never breached the surface in a volcano, the lying layers of sedimentary rock upward into a gentle, sprawling dome. Then erosion began its work. Millennia of wind scoured its surface, but the primary artist was a force now absent from this landscape: water. For the Sahara was not always a desert. The dome's peak was worn away, and because the layers of rock possessed different strengths, the erosion was selective. Softer stone was washed into valleys, while the harder, resistant quartzite remained, forming the circular ridges we see today. What we witness now is a perfect horizontal slice through deep time. The rings are the exposed edges. The eye is an anatomical theatre of geology, dissecting a history that stretches back 500 million years. But its greatest revelation is not geological, it is climatic. This structure is irrefutable proof that the Sahara we know is a recent invention. It was shaped not by wind alone, but by immense volumes of flowing water, water that has long since vanished. The eye, then, is more than a landmark. It is a key, unlocking the door to a lost world. A world where, in the place of endless dunes, great rivers once flowed and vast lakes shimmered. The world of a Green Sahara. The image of a verdant, flourishing Londonable. The eye of the Sahara does not just watch the heavens, it forces us to look down, to see that the ground beneath our feet is not a static stage, but a living manuscript, a record of worlds that have been, and a quiet testament to the worlds that are yet to come. The deserts, it seems, hold the memory of oceans. For vast stretches of the last several 100,000 years, the Sahara was not a desert. It was a savanna, and at times even a lush forest steppe. This recurring transformation is known as the African humid period. The cause of these dramatic climatic oscillations lies not in Africa, but in the cosmos. It is tied to the Milankovitch cycles, periodic shifts in Earth's orbit and axial tilt. Approximately every 20,000 years, the planet's axis performs a slow, deliberate wobble known as precession, tracing a circle. These celestial movements alter the amount of solar energy the Northern Hemisphere receives during its summer. When this solar radiation reaches its peak, it profoundly strengthens the West African monsoon. Winds, heavy with moisture from the Atlantic, penetrate far deeper into the continent, carrying life-giving rains. And the Sahara is reborn. The last of these green periods began around 11,000 years ago and ended just 5,000 years ago. It was a golden age. Satellite radar, capable of peering several meters beneath the sand, and the analysis of sediment cores drilled from the Atlantic floor, have allowed scientists to piece together a portrait of this vanished world. Where barren wastelands now stretch to the horizon, enormous freshwater lakes once shimmered. The largest, Paleo Lake Megachad, covered an area of nearly 400,000 square kilometers at its peak, larger than the modern Caspian Sea. Its ghost shorelines are still visible in satellite imagery, etched into the desert floor. In Egypt, where the Great Sand Sea now reigns, a complex system of lakes existed, fed by the annual floods of the Nile. In the year 2008, a team led by Ted Maxwell of the Smithsonian Institution, analyzing shuttle radar data, discovered evidence of a megalake in the Tushka region that spanned more than 100,000 square kilometers. These great lakes were connected by mighty rivers. An entire network named the Irharha system drained the central Sahara, carrying its waters to the Atlantic and the Mediterranean. One such paleo river, the Taman Rasset, rose in the Ahagar Mountains and flowed across the continent to the coast of Mauritania. It would have been one of the longest rivers on Earth. The landscape was a tapestry of grasses, shrubs and trees, acacia and baobab, typical of the modern savanna. The analysis of ancient pollen, perfectly preserved in lakebed deposits, confirms the precise composition of this forgotten flora. This green world was home to a staggering abundance of fauna. Upon the rock faces, a breathtaking art gallery from that era survives. The stone canvases depict giraffes, elephants, rhinoceroses and hippos. Crocodiles haunt the riverbanks, while vast herds of antelope and cattle graze on the plains. It was an African Serengeti, thriving thousands of kilometers north of where it exists today. The desert holds its secrets close, a silent testament to the profound and cyclical nature of change. It reminds us that the world we know is not permanent, but merely a single chapter in an immense planetary story, written, erased, and rewritten by the patient mechanics of the heavens. The Sahara was long believed to be an impassable barrier, a sea of sand that sealed the fate of ancient migrations out of Africa. But this understanding was built on a mirage. The discovery of a Green Sahara shattered this illusion, revealing that the Great Desert's wet periods were not walls, but corridors, gateways for the flow of people, ideas, and technologies. The most profound evidence for this lost world emerged in the year 2000. Paleontologist Paul Sereno and his team were searching for dinosaur bones in the Tenere Desert of Niger at a remote site known as Gobero. But instead of reptilian giants, they unearthed human remains. They had stumbled upon the largest and oldest Stone Age cemetery ever found in the Sahara. Nearly 200 burials, dating from 10,000 to 5,000 years ago. Gobero was a window into the lives of two entirely different peoples who inhabited this land, separated by a millennium of drought. The first were the Kiphians. They lived here from 10,000 to 8,000 years ago, during the peak of the African humid period. They were hunters and fishers, and their skeletons speak of a powerful people, towering, muscular figures, some reaching over 2 meters in height. They stalked the savanna's large game and pulled giant perch from the vast lake that then shimmered across the landscape. Beside their remains lay the tools of their time: harpoons carved from hippopotamus bone and distinctive pot. Then, around 8,000 years ago, the world changed. The monsoon weakened, the rain ceased, and the lake evaporated. A 1,000-year drought descended, and the Kiphians vanished. Whether they migrated south or perished in the encroaching sands, we do not know. But the story did not end. 7,000 years ago, the rains returned, the lake refilled, and new people arrived, the Tenerians. They were unlike their predecessors, shorter, with a more slender build. They were pastoralists, herding cattle across the greening landscape, but also hunting and gathering. Their culture was more intricate, leaving behind elegant ceramics and ornaments fashioned from ivory, hippopotamus teeth, and stone. Their graves tell intimate, heartbreaking stories. One burial in particular captures a moment frozen in time. A woman and 2 children lying on their sides, facing each other in a final embrace. They were laid to rest on a bed of flowers whose ancient pollen survived in the soil for 6,000 years. It speaks to complex rituals, to a belief in an afterlife, and to a love as powerful then as it is today. But around 5,500 years ago, this paradise began to die again, this time for good. The Earth's orbital cycles shifted once more, causing the monsoon to retreat. Yet recent studies suggest a new factor was at play. A team led by archaeologist David Wright has proposed that the very pastoralism that sustained the Tenerians may have accelerated the desert's return as grazing herds stripped the land of vegetation, turning fertile soil to dust. The sands of Gobero hold more than the ghosts of two lost cultures. They hold a silent warning that the line between a garden and a wasteland is drawn not only by the cycles of the planet, but by the hand of humankind. A fragile balance broken by the very life it sustained. As livestock grazed, the plant cover vanished. Fewer plants meant less moisture returned to the atmosphere. Less atmospheric moisture meant fewer rains. Humanity, perhaps unwittingly, delivered the final blow to a dying ecosystem. The transformation from green savanna to barren desert was astonishingly swift, unfolding over perhaps just a few centuries. Lakes evaporated, rivers ceased to flow, grasslands surrendered to sand. People and animals faced a stark choice: flee or perish. The Green Sahara became a myth once more, its story sealed beneath the dunes, waiting to be rediscovered only in the 21st century. Yet this recent memory is but a single page in a far more ancient saga. To journey further back is to enter a world more alien, more unbelievable than any verdant savanna. A world where, in place of these endless sands, a warm tropical sea once surged. Roughly 100 million years ago, during the mid-Cretaceous period, global sea levels were vastly higher. A sweltering climate had melted the polar caps, and water inundated the continent's lowlands. Across North Africa, a colossal channel of water flowed, what is now known as the Trans-Saharan Seaway. It linked the primordial Tethys Sea, forerunner to the Mediterranean, with the Atlantic Ocean to the south. The Sahara was not a monolith of sand, but an archipelago. Its grès, while the basins of Mali and Niger were submerged beneath a shallow, sunlit sea. Paleontological discoveries from these regions paint a staggering portrait of a rich marine ecosystem. In 2016, a team of scientists in Mali unearthed the remains of colossal sea creatures. Among them, catfish stretching more than 1.5 meters and sea snakes exceeding 12 meters in length, longer than a modern bus. Researchers theorized it was a case of insular gigantism. Isolated waters with an abundance of food and a scarcity of predators can be a crucible for the evolution of giants. But the sea was not the only domain of monsters. Its shorelines, deltas, and river systems were the hunting grounds for the most terrifying predators ever to walk the earth. Morocco's Kemkem Formation, a place now known as the most dangerous single location in our planet's history, has yielded a pantheon of these apex killers. Here reigned Carcharodontosaurus, the shark-toothed lizard. A theropod that dwarfed Tyrannosaurus rex, it wielded a skull 1.5 meters long, largest carnivorous dinosaur ever known. Reaching up to 15 meters in length, distinguished by the immense sail on its back, it was a predator of two worlds. A semi-aquatic hunter, it prowled the rivers, haping shut on massive fish. And above it all, casting immense shadows upon the water, giant pterosaurs soared through the Cretaceous sky. The sand is a veil. Beneath it lie worlds upon worlds, a lost sea, a forgotten paradise, a kingdom of titans. It is a stark reminder that no landscape is permanent, that even the most formidable features of our planet are merely fleeting moments in the immense, unwritten epic of geologic time. This was a brutal primordial world, to 6 meters. Here, every day was a theater of survival. a nightmare that unfolded where, today, only the wind drives the sand. When the Sahara finally desiccated, it seemed the story of civilization in this region had ended. The desert became an empty quarter, an uninhabitable land, shunned by even the most resilient peoples. But this was not the entire truth. Even in the heart of the dead desert, where the remnants of ancient aquifers lay sleeping, life found a way to endure. And not merely life, but a highly developed civilization. This was the kingdom of the Garamantes, a people known to us primarily through the writings of Greek A Mental Picture. Wild nomads, barbarians on chariots, raiding Roman outposts in North Africa. For centuries, this was all that was known. But in the 20th century, archaeology began to uncover a profoundly different story. Satellite imagery, followed by excavations in Libya's Fezzan region, the core of their kingdom, revealed the Garamantes were no simple nomads. They were the architects of a complex, sedentary society built on oasis agriculture. The key to their success was an act of sheer engineering genius. They learned to mine fossil water, the liquid inheritance left in subterranean reservoirs from the age of the Green Sahara. To do this, they constructed fogaras, vast, complex underground irrigation channels. It was a monumental undertaking. They dug vertical shafts, plunging tens of meters down to the water table. Then, deep beneath the earth, they carved horizontal tunnels with a precise, gentle slope. Along these channels, water flowed by gravity alone, emerging miles away to feed their fields. The length of a single tunnel could stretch for several kilometers. The total network of fogaras in the Garamantian kingdom is estimated to run for thousands of kilometers, one of the greatest engineering achievements of the ancient world. This technology allowed them to conjure flourishing oases from the barren earth. They cultivated wheat, barley, dates, grapes, and olives. They raised livestock. Their society was strictly hierarchical, ruled by a king. Their capital, Garama, modern Jerma, was between the 1st and 4th centuries AD a major urban center, home to thousands. Archaeologists have unearthed the ruins of more than 100 fortified settlements. They were not only masterful engineers, but also warriors and merchants. They controlled the Trans-Saharan trade, a vital artery connecting the Roman Empire to the riches of Central Africa. They supplied ivory, gold, enslaved peoples, and ostrich feathers. In return, they received Roman luxuries, fine glass, wine, and pottery. They were a civilization that bent the most hostile environment on Earth to their will, a testament not just to survival, but to dominion. Their story, long buried, reminds us that the desert is never truly empty. It is a library of silenced histories, waiting for the sand to shift. They traded in ceramics and wine, but their entire civilization was built upon a resource that could not be renewed. They drew upon ancient waters, draining the deep aquifers far faster than they could ever be replenished. By the 5th century of the Common Era, the water table had fallen so far that their ingenious underground canals, the Fogara, ran dry. Their agricultural base collapsed. The kingdom withered, becoming easy prey for the nomadic tribes that swept in from the wastes. A civilization that had conquered the desert was, in the end, consumed by it. The Garamants vanished, leaving behind only the ruins of their cities and the skeletal remains of their brilliant subterranean channels. A stark reminder that even the most sophisticated technology is powerless when it violates the fragile balance of the natural world. The word Sahara conjures images of an endless sea of sand. It is an image forged in cinema and popular culture, a powerful and persistent illusion. In truth, the great sand seas, the ergs, cover a mere 20 to 30% of the Sahara's territory. The remaining 70% is a world of stone, rocky plateaus, the hamada, gravel plains, the reg, salt flats. The Sahara is, first and foremost, a kingdom of stone, not sand. The sand is merely a consequence of its slow destruction, the result of millions of years of wind and brutal temperature swings that shatter rock into dust. And yet, within this hostile, stony world, people endure, roughly 2.5 million souls. It is a mere drop in the ocean for a territory the size of the United States, but their very existence is a miracle of adaptation. The majority cling to the desert's periphery or cluster in oases where subterranean waters breach the surface. In the north, Arche Desert's heart, live the Berber peoples, most famously the Tuareg. They are known as the Blue People of the Desert, a name earned from their tradition of dyeing their clothing with indigo, a pigment that bleeds onto their skin, marking them with the color of twilight. The Tuareg are masters of survival, a nomadic people whose entire culture, their social structure, their knowledge of the star-filled sky, the behavior of their animals, has been honed by millennia of life in the most extreme of conditions. Their economy was traditionally built on the breeding of camels and the control of the great caravan routes, and the principal commodity they transport across the sands has not changed since the time of the Garamantes: salt. In Bilna, in the nation of Niger, they still harvest salt from the sun-scorched flats. They load it onto their camels and lead their caravans across hundreds of kilometers of desert to trade for millet and other goods. It is one of the last great caravan epics on our planet, a living echo of an ancient world. Yet even in this world of ancient traditions, there are phenomena that seem to border on the supernatural until science offers an explanation. Chief among them is the mirage, an optical illusion that in countless tales has driven travelers to madness, compelling them to chase phantom lakes shimmering on the horizon. The physics is deceptively simple. On a searingly hot day, the air just above the scorched earth heats dramatically, becoming less dense than the cooler air above it. This differing an illusion of water, where there is only heat and stone. The mirage is perhaps the desert's most potent metaphor. A landscape that seems empty, yet is full of life. A civilization that chased an illusion of infinite water until its world ran dry. The Sahara teaches a final, brutal lesson. To survive here, one must learn to distinguish the ephemeral from the eternal, the illusion from the stone-hard truth. For in the end, the desert does not yield its secrets. It merely reflects our own desires and our own limitations back at us. Light bends as it passes through layers of air of differing densities, colder above, superheated below. Rays from the sky arc upward, and to the human eye they appear to emanate from the earth itself. We see the sky reflected on the desert floor, and our brain, searching for reason, interprets this shimmering illusion as the surface of water. But there are stranger phenomena, the singing dunes. In certain corners of the Sahara, under precise conditions, colossal mountains of sand begin to emit a low, resonant hum, a sound akin to the drone of a distant aircraft or the somber notes of organ music. Marco Polo, encountering this in the Gobi, wrote of evil spirits luring travelers to their doom. In truth, it is a matter of physics. The song begins when a sheet of sand avalanches down the face of a dune. The sound is born from the vibration of millions of individual grains rubbing against one another. But the conditions must be perfect. The sand must be exceptionally dry, the grains a specific size, between 1/10 and 2/10 of a millimeter, and of a nearly perfect spherical shape, each coated in a thin layer of silica. When these requirements are met, the avalanche creates seismic waves that travel through the dune's immense body. The dune itself becomes a gigantic resonator, amplifying the sound. Different wave patterns create a complex acoustic range, from a low thrumming to otherworldly notes. It is one of the rarest and most haunting sounds in the natural world. Our investigation, which began with a single enigmatic stone, has led us through lost worlds. We have seen the Sahara not as a wasteland, but as a green savanna pulsing with life. We have plunged into its deep past, to a time when it was a sea swarming with monsters. We have witnessed the rise and fall of an ingenious civilization that learned to drink the very blood of the desert. What does it all mean? How does this alter our understanding not only of the Sahara, but of our world? The official history we are taught in schools often presents geography as a static fact. A desert is a desert, a forest is a forest. The story of the Sahara proves this to be a profound fallacy. The Earth is a living, breathing organism in a state of constant transformation. The landscapes that seem eternal to us are, in reality, a mere flicker in the expanse of geologic time. The Sahara is not a final judgment. It is a transient state. It was a paradise, it became a hell, and perhaps 10,000 years from now, when the Milankovitch cycles once again shift the climate, it will be paradise again. This forces us to reconsider the very concept of a desert. It is not a place where there is nothing, but a place where everything is hidden. It is a vast library where every volume lies buried beneath millennia of sand. And we are only now learning to read these volumes using new instruments, satellites, ground-penetrating radar, DNA analysis, and the subtle language of isotopes. But the history of the Sahara is more than a lesson about the past. It is an ominous warning about the future. Today, the Sahara is expanding once more. Over the last century, it has grown by nearly 10%, and this time, the orbital cycles of our planet are not the only force to blame. The fault is our own. A warming climate driven by human hands deepens the drought across the Sahel. On the southern fringe of the Great Desert, the sands are advancing. It is a story that echoes a cautionary tale from antiquity. The Garamantes, a civilization that perished after exhausting its most precious resources, whispering a warning across the millennia. But there is another side to this story. The Sahara is more than a threat. It is a vital artery in a global system, a force for life. Each year, winds scour the Bodele Depression, the dry heart of what was once Paleo Lake Megachad, lifting millions of tons of dust into the heavens. This plume, rich with phosphorus and ancient minerals, embarks on a transatlantic journey. It settles upon the Amazon basin, a ghost of a lake fertilizing the largest rainforest on Earth, the very lungs that produce the oxygen we breathe. Here lies a profound paradox. The desert, a place we see as a symbol of endings, breathes life into a distant continent. A symbiosis written on a planetary scale, a testament to the intricate, invisible threads that bind our world together. And this brings us back to where we began, to a small black fragment of stone that has no business being here, the Hypatia Stone. After a journey through worlds buried beneath the sand, its meaning transforms. It is no longer just a rock, it is an absolute symbol. A reminder that the history of this place, the history of our entire planet, is but a single grain of sand in the chronicle of the universe. We speak of thousands of years of a green Sahara, of millions of years when this was a sea prowled by dinosaurs. But this stone may hold memories of a time before the Earth, before the sun itself had even formed. It rests in an environment that is itself a vault of time. The Sahara is the ultimate conservator. Its arid air, devoid of moisture and biological decay, preserves all that falls into its embrace for millennia. It has held the bones of Stone Age peoples, the ruins of forgotten cities, the remains of colossal reptiles. And it has held this silent visitor from another star system. Our investigation has peeled back layers of sand and time, but the Sahara's greatest secret is its power to compel questions that transcend science and history. To know that a paradise once thrived where the world's largest desert now lies is to understand the profound fragility of our own world, to see the razor-thin line between a garden and a wasteland. To know the fate of the Garamantes, a civilization so ingenious yet doomed by its own consumption, is to see our own reflection on a global scale. The Sahara is a library of ages, and we are forced to wonder how many of its pages remain unread. What other worlds, what other histories lie dormant, awaiting their moment beneath the shifting sands? What other travelers from eternity rest in the silence, holding secrets our imagination has not yet learned how to frame? What is the message we are meant to decipher from these silent remnants? And of all its lost stories, which one echoes most profoundly in the chambers of the modern soul? The investigation does not end here, it merely pauses, for the deepest truths remain buried, whispering from just beneath the sand, waiting for the patient hand and the curious mind. The search is a testament not to what was, but to the enduring human need to understand, a need that will continue to sift through the dust of ages long after we are gone.